The river was now full of men who were drowning and shouting for help, but there was no help to give them except from God. I never saw such a sight, and God grant I may never see such another. I was all covered with blood from someone, I suppose, who had been shot near me. I felt very faint, and the men seeing the blood supposed that I was wounded.
An excerpt from today's program, a little-known Civil War battle that would expose the harsh realities of war and lead to significant military and political repercussions. I'm Robert Child, and today we explore the Battle of Bluff. This is Point of the Spear. Welcome back. In the fall of 1861, as General George McClellan was settling into command, a disaster of a battle would unfold that left both sides bloodied and Union forces beaten once again. There was much finger-pointing and anger, and questions to whether the Union would even win the war. Today, it's the Battle of Bluff, and I hope you enjoy the program.
In this first year of the American Civil War, 1861, as the summer months faded into fall, the tranquil banks of the Potomac River became the stage for a tragic and pivotal conflict, the Battle of Bluff. Also known as the Battle of Leesburg, this engagement would expose the harsh realities of war and lead to significant military and political repercussions. The Battle of Bluff was precipitated by a series of misunderstandings and miscommunications. In October 1861, Union forces, eager to demonstrate their resolve after the defeat at Bull Run, sought to engage Confederate troops in northern Virginia. Leesburg, Virginia, was of strategic importance due to its proximity to Washington. Union General George McClellan, now commanding the Army of the Potomac, ordered reconnaissance missions to ascertain Confederate strength and positions in the area. Brigadier General Charles P. Stone was tasked with these operations. Stone had been appointed by Lieutenant General Winfield Scott when the war broke out as the Inspector General of the District of Columbia. In that capacity, he rallied the limited forces available to ensure the security of the capital. This was especially difficult after rebel sympathizers cut off the city by severing railroad lines leading into Washington after the secessionist attack on troops transiting through Baltimore. Stone's diligence earned him the trust of President Abraham Lincoln despite the fact that Stone was not a political supporter. On October 20, 1861, General Stone received intelligence reports suggesting the Confederates were evacuating Leesburg. Acting on this information, Stone ordered a reconnaissance in force across the Potomac River at Bluff. 2 Massachusetts regiments made up part of the reconnaissance of the Confederate positions along the upper Potomac. The 20th Infantry Regiment, known as the Harvard Regiment because of its well-educated, socially elite officers, and the 15th Infantry, recruited primarily out of Worcester County, Massachusetts. One 23-year-old officer who would survive the battle, Caspar Crowninshield of Boston, attended Harvard College where his roommate was Robert Gould Shaw. Shaw would later command the 54th Massachusetts, whose story was immortalized in the film Glory. After Crownenshield's graduation from Harvard in 1860, he joined the 20th Regiment of Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry as its captain. He wrote to his mother in the days just after the battle at Bluff.
Camp Benton, October 22, 1861. My dear mother, I sit down in haste to give you an account of the battle which we have just fought. I had been stationed near the river to support a battery, Ricketts, for about a week. On Sunday at 3 p.m., we received orders to march with Captain Bartlett's company up the canal about 3 miles from Edwards Ferry and await orders. When we arrived there, we met Colonel Lee and Major Revere, who told us that we were to cross the river with 300 men of the 15th Massachusetts Regiment and surprise a rebel camp which was near the town of Leesburg.
In the early hours of October 21st, Colonel Edward Baker, a close friend of President Abraham Lincoln and a sitting U.S. Senator, led a brigade across the river. However, the intelligence was flawed. Confederate forces under Colonel Nathan Shanks Evans were not retreating but were positioned to defend Leesburg. The Union troops faced numerous logistical challenges. They were ill-equipped for the river crossing, and their movements were hampered by the dense terrain. This lack of preparation would prove disastrous as they encountered a well-prepared Confederate force. By midday, the Union soldiers were engaged in fierce combat. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Baker's men found themselves trapped between the Confederate forces and the steep bluffs of the Potomac River.
Casper Crowninshield, 20th Massachusetts. We met the rebels with a severe fire, and they fell back, but they continued to fire very rapidly and killed many of our men. They cheered furiously as their reinforcements came up, and their fire became fiercer and fiercer.
The battle reached its tragic climax as the Union forces attempted to retreat. With few boats and under relentless Confederate fire, the retreat turned into a rout. Many soldiers were forced to leap from the cliffs into the river, where they drowned or were shot.
We had to fall back rapidly now, as our center was broken, and had fallen back to the woods on the bank of the river. I was within 6 feet of Colonel Baker when he fell. He got up once, and then fell again, and 2 men carried him off. He had 3 or 4 bullets in him, they say. He behaved with the utmost courage and coolness all through the fight. Casper Crowninshield, 20th Massachusetts.
Colonel Baker's death in the midst of the battle was a severe blow to Union morale. His fall symbolized the chaos and desperation of the moment. It also had significant political ramifications, as Baker was a personal friend of President Lincoln. Congress was especially upset at the death of a popular former member, and some were quick to find fault with General Stone. By the end of the day, nearly 1,000 Union soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. The Confederates, though victorious, also suffered significant casualties.
The river was now full of men who were drowning and shouting for help, but there was no help to give them except from God. I never saw such a sight, and God grant I may never see such another. I was all covered with blood from someone, I suppose, who had been shot near me. I felt very faint, and the men seeing the blood supposed that I was wounded, and those who managed to get across the river to the island which we held reported me as killed or taken prisoner. I shall write again soon. Goodbye. Give my love to all and believe that I did my duty. Your affectionate son, Casper.
Crowninshield ended the war as the colonel of the 2nd Massachusetts Cavalry, with the brevet rank of Brigadier General for gallant and meritorious services during the war. The Battle of Ball's Bluff had profound consequences. In Washington, the defeat intensified scrutiny of military leadership. The disastrous outcome led to the establishment of the Congressional Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War, which would play a pivotal role in overseeing and influencing Union military strategies. The committee's creation was a direct response to the failures seen at Ball's Bluff. It marked the beginning of increased political oversight of military operations, which sometimes caused friction between military commanders and civilian leadership. The battle also underscored the need for better coordination and intelligence in military operations. Lessons learned from the defeat at Ball's Bluff would shape the strategies and decisions in the subsequent years of the war. Today, Ball's Bluff stands as a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made during the Civil War. The lessons learned from this tragic engagement continue to echo through military history, a testament to the complexities and costs of war.
That's it for this episode. Be sure to join us next time for my conversation with New York Times best-selling author Martin Dugard on his latest book, Taking London. I'm Robert Child, and this has been Point of the Spear.
Music licensed from audioblocks.com. Point of the Spear is produced by RSC Media Group.